What up, world, and welcome to Black Nerd Fridays. I'm your host, D. Neal. And yeah, I don't have Kinky Suds and Black Bearded Nerd, but I got someone just as good who meshed well with the team, the one and only Mr. Ray Comics himself, TJ Sterling. How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, y'all? What's going on? I am absolutely happy and excited to be here and fill in for our friends that couldn't make it this weekend. Yeah. Shout out to Kinky Suds and Black Bearded. You know what I'm saying? We try to get it, which was originally Mr. Bearded was not going to be here. So I was going to supplement my beard on behalf of his beard.
Oh, man. It would have been great. You know, everybody would have been like, what's going on here? What's happening?
That's right.
But we are going to review the good, bad, the ugly, and the impact of character development. And more importantly, since we got TJ here, we got to talk about the artwork that was done by the creators of Berserk. I mean, we were just talking right before we got on, and the colors of it were great. And TJ was just expressing that a lot of anime, it's going more in the 3D aspect. I mean, I'm thinking of Netflix's original, let's say original series, Pacific Rim, where they were did the continuation of that. And the 3D animation is getting better, don't get me wrong, but it's something about that drawing, especially when it comes to the emotions of characters. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is a beautiful piece of art. But you know what? Before we even do good, bad, and ugly, I'm gonna let TJ talk about just the artwork and what you got from Berserk and why it really just renders in your mind of like, this is a piece of art.
Oh man, that's a fantastic question. I mean, for anybody who's watching this, it's like, if you don't know what Berserk is, I mean, I highly doubt you don't. But for some reason, you don't know what Berserk is. It's an anime that basically started back in like 1985. You know, I'm sorry, it's a manga that started in Japan in 1985, and essentially it was a story that was originally called Young Animal.
Wow.
And Young Animal was centered around a guy named Guts, or Gatsu. And Guts was essentially based off a historical figure in real European history, where there was a guy who lost his arm in battle and then had a prosthetic hand that he had built from steel pieces and metal pieces that he would wear on the battlefield. And it had like weapons kind of built into the fingers and to the wrist. And so this was like a real character that existed in real life at one point. So the creator, Kentaro Mura, basically kind of took this exploded view of what European culture was, with like ogres and demons and fairies and elves, and these vast landscapes where battles would be held, and they'd have knights and demons and all these other folklore, and essentially brought that into this one story called Berserk under kind of a Japanese lens, with all a Japanese cast of characters. And because it was so revolutionary for its time, no one had ever really seen anything like it. It quickly kind of rose to this high level of popularity within the manga and art community in Japan and eventually across the world. And one of the biggest reasons was because of the art. I mean, the art was so powerful. I mean, you talk about detail. I mean, this man's job, Kentaro Mura's job since 1985 was drawing one comic book. So he probably devoted every single waking moment he had to working on this book, and it shows in the detail of the actual artwork. So it's really, really kind of dope to be able to witness that as you're reading it,
I have to say the manga, hands down, one, if not the best artwork when it comes to, I mean, not only drawing, but just detail. I mean, the detail, and I just finished up at least the last chapter of the manga recently last week. And I was like, this is why I just was drenched in it when I first I even heard of Berserk. And I remember seeing some of the episodes as a child in the 90s, but it wasn't really like, I just didn't remember everything. But then I picked up the manga, and I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, the scenes of what the God hands and just the total void or not void, excuse me, the total darkness that you get with the eclipse, with the god hands coming, how they form on this pillar of five fingers that actually make it a hand, since they call it the god hand, rising up through the ground. The endless it seems like just never ending amount of demons and faces and all that. And I was just like, this is crazy, man. The manga is definitely hands down one of the best. And yeah, the artwork, just watching the anime, recently rewatching it again, I just was like, yeah, this is nice. And I love that 90s feel of, because it was like borderline. I remember watching some 80s anime, early 90s, but this was 1994, I believe, when the anime came out. So you're seeing technology increase throughout that period of time, so you're able to see multiple things. And I'm like, it's just right, that it's that perfect like sweet spot of like, okay, it's not overly Sailor Moon-esque, even though Sailor Moon was later, a lot of bright colors, but then it was also not like I think it was like Demon Slayer, not the Demon Slayer currently, but the one where it was I think a woman protagonist who was dressed up as a knight, and it was kind of in between that feel, but a lot warmer. So I really enjoy it, definitely. Let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the good. I'll let you go first, because again, I gotta always let the guest go first. What the good aspects outside of the artwork? We know that. What else did you really enjoy about Berserk?
I mean, it's one of the very few anime that I enjoyed absolutely everything about it, bro. Honestly, like so the only gripe that I had about the original animated series, so the original animated series debuted in 1996 or 95. I can't really remember. But
I believe it said 94, but I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that.
Right around that area, the original animated series debuted. It was 25 episodes. It debuted on Japanese television from Studio OLM, which is Oriental Light and Magic. Basically, in these people know OLM's work. Like, they did Pokemon for the longest. They did Beyblade. They did the re-envisioning of the Guyver in 2005. They redid anime.
Let's go, Guyver.
This anime studio has been around for a long time. You know what I'm saying? So when they did Berserk, they essentially only covered the Golden Age arc. Yeah, which is the relationship of Guts and the Hawks and their rise to power and their ranks within Midland, and then eventually the fall of Griffith, and then the death of all of these amazing characters that we all start to kind of know and love. But the interesting thing is that even though they had 25 episodes, which is technically a lot nowadays, there was no way for them to cover all of the things that happened in the Golden Age arc. So they really omitted a lot of stuff. So
yes,
even if you're watching the first Berserk manga, which is a Berserk anime, on VHS, on DVD, wherever you can find it, maybe you can get it on Crunchyroll, I don't know. But if you're watching it, it's dope as fuck. But you're missing out on so much good stuff if you're not going to read the manga. Like, you have to read the manga to get the real story.
Yes, and more yes. Do not sleep on the manga. I know it is long. It seems like it's daunting, but as soon as you read the first chapter, second chapter, you are like, this is crazy. And of course, the manga is even darker. And when I say darker, I'm just saying it's very vitriol in the beginning, and it when it goes back into Guts' past, it shows a lot of things that as I watched the anime, and I was like, okay, I know why they omitted that. But it really is not just there for a shock value. It's really there to explain to you how the characters are thinking. And a lot of these characters, it's trauma that does deal with either sexual assault or about to be sexually assaulted. And then but it's not the sexual assault that is the focal point. It's actually the relationship with the people around the character, who that character thought was family or would protect them in some shape or form, or was looking up to them. Because in all the characters' backstory, definitely at a young age, even Griffith, I saw that in the manga. I know, as we talked about with the anime, it really doesn't get into that aspect. Griffith's whole background. I'm thinking he's like a bastard son of a king, if I'm not mistaken. So he was constantly looking at the castle. Mother was very ill and sick. She was casted aside. So he really had, it was like a whole bunch in his dream and his vision. But he definitely knew that to be strong in the world, it's not just to be strong. You have to have a dream, and that dream has to be, you have to go for it like a pinpoint accuracy. And I think that for Griffith's character is great. I mean, and my good, as I'm rambling on, my good is definitely the character development. Guts, to me, hands down, no superpowers, no, just all, I mean, all willpower, really, just willpower to not want, just because he's fought his whole life. That's all he's been taught. I mean, literally, in the beginning of the couple chapters of the manga, and even the anime, you got Guts' character literally is coming out of his mother's body while she hung on a tree. Like, this is definitely, I mean, this is not something that you can, I mean, even the characters that find Guts are like, oh, this is a horrible omen. This kid shouldn't even be alive, type of thing. I mean, this is just crazy. So that character development is amazing. And we'll talk more about the characters as we go on. But I definitely got to go with the bad. But before we do that, I'm here at Black Nerd Fridays. We do like to drink beer, and I know the rest of the crew's not here. And TJ, I didn't tell you beforehand to bring a beer if you drink beer, but I'm drinking East Brother right here. They are out here in Richmond, California, and I'm drinking their oatmeal stout. It's not the high ABV; it's only 4.5, but I got two. So shout out to the person who always holds us down, Brick Terrarian, always looking on YouTube and IG. I got two of them. I'm gonna drink two. Don't worry about it. And then for Juneteenth, I'm going to celebrate Oak Park Brewing Company in Sacramento, California. They're doing a collaboration with 3 Black-owned breweries. So I'm gonna catch up, Brick. Don't worry about it. Let's go to your bad, man. Let's talk about we got to do good, bad, and ugly. So I know, even though it's a monumental manga and anime, I know there's some points that you're like, what is your bad?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I kind of touched on it before when I was saying that when you were watching the anime, that you didn't get all of the story, which was kind of a little disappointing to me. But at the same time, like, I just don't think there was any way for them to encompass all of what was in the manga, in 25 episodes. There was just no way to do it. I mean, 25 episodes is a tall order. I mean, if you think about 1 minute's worth of animation is a month. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
25 minutes or 30 minutes an episode times 26 episodes. It's a lot of time that these folks spent working on this anime. So that was my gripe with the first anime. But ultimately, what I absolutely did not like is when they redid the anime. When I think it was 2014 or 2015, redid it. And it was terrible because they incorporated so much CG, like not just on things like a sword or like a truck or like just more non-organic objects. They were using 3D on all objects within the story, including characters. And it just really was very jarring and just kind of off-putting, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just did not like it at all. And that's what, from what I understand, it's a big gripe from a lot of fans across the Berserk space, that just, they didn't like it because of the 3D element.
Man, TJ, we're gonna have a lot of good I agree with you moments with the Berserk, because I mean, the 2015 3D animation of Berserk took away from all of, when I say all of the depth, I literally felt like I was watching I'm trying to think of that cartoon that came out where it was all 3D and it was they were blue, the characters were blue. Reboot. Yes, thank you. That's what it reminded me of, but it just tried so hard to get detail in with that 3D animation. And I understand you got to try different technologies, but with this, I mean, with Berserk, you just didn't do it justice with that. And not only that, I really just was like, okay, I can't stand it. I can't stand the way that things were attempting to flow, the battle scenes especially. You would think that you would spend a lot of time on really being key with those battle scenes, but it was almost like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventures in some aspects, even though it really attempted to get all of the nuance of Guts' sword play, or how the apostles, or because I don't always want to call them demons, but apostles would turn into their final form. All these things were just lacking. I mean, it just was horrible. I gotta say bad. That's my bad. I probably should have made that my ugly. But I'll get to my ugly too, because I want to talk about it.
That's both for me, bad and ugly.
Bad is all right. Well, I can just jump into the ugly, man. The ugly for me is like they just did not finish it. That's my ugly. I mean, they did a wonderful job in 1994 doing the 25 episodes, as you mentioned, really focusing on that character development between the friendship, or what we think of as a friendship, between Griff, Guts, and Casca. And it really showed that progression of like sacrifice, struggle. And I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice on this, and a lot of the dreams that people had. I just wanted more of that. I mean, a lot of these characters, as you said, were cut down. And I think we're also used to that. And I think Berserk, whether television shows or anime or cartoons now, or people who write books who turn into television shows, want to admit it or not, Berserk really got you loving the band of the Hawks, aka the White Hawks, and literally they're cut down and cut down, and not just through battle. They are cut down in the worst way possible. And I mean, it's been out for a long time, so definitely spoiler alert. And we're always giving you great content. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I got to always throw those in there for the replay. But I mean, it really made you, the way that the Hawks were just devoured pretty much by these demons, really just made you say, Griffith, I hate you with the utmost of whatever hate is, because you just saw it. I mean, you saw the pain, especially Guts. I mean, Guts was the only one to really survive out of this, but Casca, and the way that it was more so like manipulation from Griff's standpoint. I talking about him, or starting off with him as a character, because he was so more than just black and white. He was very nuanced, and even within himself. That's why I titled this episode, Your Dreams Can Conceal What You Truly Desire, because what Griffith truly desired versus what he was acting on, it was always that back and forth. And even in the manga, what he really wanted, building this castle, having all the people and demons together, and we don't know if that's for real or fake, because the manga hasn't continued on yet, but you get a sense from him that he really wanted some type of family, or leading people in a way that's different. And it just really got taken away from that aspect of him becoming one of the God Hands. So yeah, and you already said you're ugly, man. So let's talk about characters. I started off with Griffith, so let's jump into Griffith. What about Griffith? And I actually made that a question on one of the banners, so I should put up. What was Griffith character to you? Like, what did he bring to the story of Berserk?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I mean, one of the things I was going to say too is that this Berserk is a very violent and brutal story. It's not for kids in any way, shape, or form. There's things like sexual abuse. There's things like rape.
Yes.
And, I mean, for me, any type of rape, pictured on, whether it's an anime or in television, is very, very disturbing for me. It really, really bothers me to my core.
Yes.
So to see that, like, a main character that I really liked, get raped in like the worst way, it was it was like a hard moment to watch.
Yeah.
And it was so polarizing that I think it just made everybody, it was like such an emotional tether that, like, you can never forget Berserk because of that one scene.
Exactly.
So, I think Griffith is one of those characters, and it's kind of interesting when you look at Guts and Griffith standing next to each other. Guts is usually dressed in all black, and he has like more of a darker demeanor. He's, hardened by life. He's been through a million different, really fucked up things in his life. So,
yes.
He seems like more of the darker character. Like he seems like almost more demonic or devilish. Yes. And then you've got Griffith, who's pictured as this, very eloquent and flowing and charismatic, all white character, platinum white hair.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? He looks very angelic. He speaks very angelic. You know what I'm saying? But what we end up seeing is that even though that's kind of the dichotomy that's being pushed in front of us, that between those two characters, that Guts is actually like the dark is what's saving the world.
Yes.
And the light, the so-called savior of what we think normally is supposed to look like a savior is actually the demon. That's so is only concerned with one thing, and that's making sure that his vision comes to fruition more than anything else. Like Griffith literally comes off as a nice guy, but will sacrifice anything and everyone for his vision.
Yes.
So he's such a he's a character that you want to try to like in the beginning, but then when you really get to know him, he's like the biggest piece of shit in it, like ever. You know what I mean? Like,
but not even like later on. It literally, he states it multiple times throughout the manga, throughout the anime. He says it, and this is probably one of the, and I can't say it word from word, and I should have wrote it down. He literally was like, "I will stand on the bodies of everyone." all the people around me are not even, he wasn't saying chess pieces or pawns. He was like, they are means to an end, but I will stand on their corpse to get to it, because they're sacrificed for my vision. If I don't make it, then it's like, what was the point? But not what was the point for their death. What was the point of the action I'm taking to make my dream a reality? And that aspect is what I was like, this guy is just, he's going to get it at by any means necessary. But the point that you're making about, just when I say hating him, literally the way that he does it, and he picks out people, and I was going back to that term of manipulation. He really picks out people that either have no hope in their minds, similar to Casca when he met her as a child, or if you even think about the band of mercenaries around them, they all have very simple dreams, and some of them are not even simple dreams. Some of them just have no dreams, because in that European setting, it's winner take all. If you are a noble, then you are given the power by the aristocracy to have lands, hence the word landlord, where that came from. And literally you are in control of these people's lives, and you could just tell. And the mercenaries are the people who just don't want to be turned over to their daughters to be given to the nobles to get married and all this stuff. But Griffith, as you said, his eyes, and I think in the anime they really focus on his eyes, and his eyes seem as if they are angelic, to your point, these blue eyes, but as they always show it, he's always, the way that his eyes are drawn, it's always something behind that. And even the characters in the manga, along with in the anime, really talk about that. And I just think that that's what made his character interesting. But at the end of the day, I'm always rooting for Guts to do what he got to do. And Guts is not clean too, so we can jump into talking about Guts as well. So what's your thought process on Guts?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, the dark hero, what I'm saying, an anti-hero, if you will. I mean, Spawn had to kill a lot of people in order to like get to the main bad guy, or like, what I'm saying, sometimes, innocents get involved. Like, I mean, it's not like this squeaky clean picture. And I think that even people who, are in law enforcement, or are in some type of, position where they have to basically save lives or sacrifice others, and it's not always a perfect squeaky clean picture. And Guts has definitely killed people and done some less than favorable things, but it's kind of like the lesser of two evils, if you will. But I mean, again, Guts isn't really evil. He's just trying to survive and like live his life, what I'm saying. But he really gets wrapped up into the manipulations of Griffith, and understanding, or not really understanding, like what he like, because see, grit like Guts being a person he's kind of at his core a decent guy, wants to have friends and wants to trust people, and Griffith, being the manipulator, takes advantage of that and sees that he's a pawn that he can put on the chessboard and kind of move around. And I think when Guts finally realizes that, hey, I'm nobody's pawn, I'm my own man, what I'm saying, I can do whatever I want, he decides to leave the Band of the Hawk and, explore the world and, just, walk away for a little bit. But that's kind of when things change. The whole entire story changes from that point on.
And Zod talks about that. Zod says when his ambition is crushed, then you will only know death or in despair or something of that nature. But I want to go in a little bit more detail on that, because Griffith literally never had someone like Guts. And he, at least in the anime, and I forget on the manga if he actually said the same thing, but he was saying, I can never have a true friend unless this friend has their own dream. And that's so that's how I can respect them and stand next to them side by side. And Guts understanding that was like, I want to be truly your friend, but I can't do this and especially in the anime, he was like, everyone here in the band of the Hawks is like him and Casca were talking about everyone being like their own small fire or wisp, but they're all attracted to the big fire because their dreams, whether it's insignificant or they feel like they can't reach them, they throw it into the fire, which is Griffith, and he blazes even hotter and higher, but their dreams are kind of just amalgamated within that because they're really not following necessarily their dream. They're waiting till after Griffith's dream is done, then they'll try to do theirs. And Guts said something very poignant in the anime about how he was like, I just come by the fire to get warm and then I'm gone. And I was like, and it ties into his character about this whole dog situation, as far as like, even when our wolf, even when he puts on the Berserk armor, the black armor, and that is a four-legged animal, whether a wolf or a dog type of thing. And it even in his dreams too, in the manga, it was like, hey, this same wolf type dog type of situation was talking to him, this darkness. And I just love that the dichotomy of those two. But then when Griffith actually like, oh, wait a minute, Guts is someone who I really chose to be as a friend because he did a lot of the espionage and the political murders in Midland's Kingdom to get me to a level where I'm unopposed and reaching where I want to reach. And he just leaves. It's like Griffith just doesn't understand. He just has no understanding of it whatsoever. He's just lost. And just to see that spiral, literally Casca said it too as well. Like Griffith he asked you to join. He never asked anybody to literally join the group. They either chose on their own volition or they just felt like they had no other circumstance but to go with him because of safety or whatever. But he never talked to, at least in the anime, never said join the band. And I think that was a great thing because Griffith never had a friend or a person that he can quote unquote not just manipulate, but they're going to do their own thing and stick to it. And that's one thing about Guts that I love as a character. He stuck to what he knew. He was like, I fight. That's what I know. But all in that fighting, back to your aspect of that dark versus light, the black versus the white color, as far as demon versus angel, Guts to me was more of the person who cared about the people. Like he learned what some of the band of the Hawks, his regiment, what they wanted to do with their life after Griffith came up there. Griffith he probably couldn't even name more than like, well, maybe he could actually. Never not say that. He probably could name everybody's name, but he probably didn't know what their dream was or what they left behind. And to me, that just showed the humanity in Guts and how they looked at Guts, because Guts was very fearless in being who he was. So I really enjoy Guts' character, hands down. And I think that's why everybody loves Berserk, because Guts does not have a superpower. He's better than Batman. There's no money, it's no super gadgets, anything like that. He literally is like
big ass sword and some darts and small stuff to throw at people.
Right. And he got the hand that can shoot one cannon shot, and then it's a wrap. and that's like his secret weapon, his coup d'etat. And I love Guts' character, man. I really do. Now, Casca's character as the most prominent female, at least in the beginning, and we can talk about Ferris or Faze, whatever. I forgot her name. The one who was a knight working for the church, and that Fairness, yes. And we got a couple other people to talk about as well. So correct me there on their names because I'm horrible with the names. But Casca's character, I mean, your thought process on her character and how she was portrayed, and then on just in the trauma that she went through, and how she towards the later on, at least in the manga, like really coming back to at least somewhat of herself, like just that whole journey, because that is it's not touchy, it's just very emotional every time I think about her character. And not only that, and let's be honest with the rape scene of her character, but literally the trauma she went through with the child that I believe or we think is Guts and Casca's child, but it's very emotional with that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I loved about Berserk when I first watched it was the fact that I mean, I'd never really seen a lot of tough, kick-ass women in manga or anime, especially in the '90s. Like, most of the time they were kind of, either part of a team and they were kind of in the background, or they were, hypersexualized. They weren't necessarily portrayed respectfully. But, Casca was like a tough, kick-ass chick that didn't take mess from anyone and was literally in like this entire group of all men. Like the entire band of the Hawk is all men, and she's the only woman who's a senior commander and, a super seasoned fighter and a veteran and Griffith's right-hand person. And, her and Guts start off not liking each other at all. And, it's kind of interesting because the more and more time goes on, they start to feel like they've got more stuff, in common than anything. Like that there's a connection between the two of them, which is really kind of cool to kind of watch flourish and stuff like that. And I think she starts to see in Guts that he's a natural leader, not because he has this ambition to become a leader, but because he's a man of the people. He does care deeply about the people around them just as much as she does. And that's why it's like when things go south and, Griffith is locked up, saying the band of the Hawk is surviving on its own. Casca is the one that's leading the entire group of all these vagrant, crazy men and keeping them, in line, which is kind of says something about how strong her character is. Yeah. But, she went through so much trauma as a kid, and then eventually, being the only woman and having to deal with all the stuff that she did deal with while she was a part of the Band of the Hawk. But when, the eclipse and the God hand moment happens, and for anybody who's not watching, the God hand moment only happens when a crimson bailet, this little egg, is basically a summoning tool for these demons. And essentially what ends up happening is that these demons come up to bear witness to a sacrifice of a large body of human creatures to birth another supreme demon. So once that happens, Griffith basically makes his choice, like, I'm going to become a supreme demon, and I'm going to sacrifice all of my friends and people who followed me in order to do this. And that's also such a crazy moment that kind of like shakes Casca's mental state. And as she starts to see, I mean, we have to remember too that they've only fought battles against human beings, but now they're fighting against the most demonic, crazy, disgusting, crazy monsters that they probably have ever seen. So they're scared shitless. Right. They're literally like, what do we do here? And she's watching her friends die over and over and over again. Then she sees her leader, someone who she trusted, turn into the supreme demon and rape her and beat her up and then, kill pretty much everyone else. And then one thing that the 1997 anime doesn't show is how they both escaped from that whole thing. Which is kind of a very big, powerful moment in the story, that the Skull King, the Skull Knight, as they call him in the story, who used to be a king, basically rescues Casca and Guts from this God hand situation and gets them out of that world before they're completely dead or they're completely annihilated. But they still both bear the brand, the God hand brand, which is a tether to the demon world. So in my personal opinion, Guts and even Casca are still connected to that realm, even though they don't want to be, even though they want to disconnect from it and live a regular life. They'll never be able to, because they've been branded and they've been connected to that heinous moment that happened. So Casca's character is really dope. She's incredible, but she went through so much trauma that she loses her mind and becomes an invalid, if you will, and becomes, completely useless as a human being and like a child. So her mind is broken for most of the Berserk series after the Golden Age arc.
Yeah. And it also, in the manga, at least, I love the literally traveling into Casca's mind to attempt to figure out what is it that's blocking her. And these are characters, and man, I keep forgetting all these characters' names. So help me out, TJ, if you remember the mage, the young mage whose name starts with an S. And
Shirke, yeah.
Shirke, and then the knight who starts with the F again, her name was
Lady Farnes, yeah.
Farnes, yes. When they travel into Casca's mind, like what they thought they had no clue, like no clue whatsoever. And just even that Lady Farnes to have a conversation with Casca's inner self, which is this very small embodiment of her, and say like, I know it's going to be painful, but you have to come back. Like that is something that really hit me as far as like people dealing with emotional things and trauma that they run away from because it could become, because it is so daunting, especially because none of them really know what it is that she really went through. I think her character, by coming back, it just shows that strength of like, I want to be whole. It's just so much that I can't even explain it. And even when she sees Guts in the manga, and every time she looks at him, it's the eclipse and the demons and the apostles behind him.
The tether,
and the tether, and it's just him. But his face is turning into the dog or wolf type armor looking thing with his eyes kind of zigzag, which I think is a great play on the eyes of the demon armor, the berserker armor. It's just great with that. But her character, man, I truly enjoy the beginning of her character. I hated what happened, and I understand that they wrote that in and trying to read it, but I just really didn't like her spaced out aspect, because even though she may have blocked that out of her mind, so many things were coming back and forth. And the time she did kind of remember it, she like screamed like there was no other. She would disappear. But then even in her childlike state, she was bringing people. It was more so that innocence of that childlike state where people were really not just looking after her, but also looking at themselves. And I just thought that was great too. And just her character as a whole, I was like, even though she's literally not mute, but almost mute throughout most of the series, people are figuring out themselves through her by just her acting like a child would, exploring everything. And I'm just like, that is crazy. Like how powerful is that for a woman's character to not be saying anything, but to move the story along more than what even the characters who are around her even know. So I just really thought that was good, man. That was good.
Yeah, that's a powerful point. I mean, yeah, Costa's character is so it's so influential. And again, this is, I think, why she's so important to Guts, because they're like two sides of the same coin. You know what I'm saying? They're very, very similar. And, that's really like his perfect woman. You know what I'm saying? It's like his soulmate, if you will. But it's like there's this larger than life thing standing between them. You know what I'm saying? And that's really like, Guts is really probably the only person that can save the entire world from this.
Yes.
From this evil. You know what I'm saying? But like for him to actually save this world, he has to channel the evil that he has inside of him.
Man.
And that's what people are seeing. So everybody's got a dark side. And in Guts' situation, his dark side is the avatar of his dark side is this, demon wolf like dog.
Yeah, you can't really tell what it is.
You don't even know what it is. But when Guts basically is injured beyond belief, he's almost dying, he puts on this black armor, this berserker armor, and the spirit, this evil spirit, or this dark side channel, it literally crosses the astral plane and comes into armor. Like the armor wields the darkness that he has. So when that darkness takes over, Guts is almost unstoppable, but his body continues to
deteriorate,
ravage and deteriorate because of how powerful the armor is. But he's the only one that can win, you know what I'm saying? That can stop these, but he has to become a demon almost himself in order to stop these crazy powerful demons.
And that and again, how that transfers back with Casca is he makes a point in the manga to where you have to make a decision. Like, are you going to protect Casca the way you said, or are you going to listen to this dark side? Because this dark side this dark aspect of him wants to really just end Casca and just everyone around him. And this was even before. This was really before the berserker armor was put on. But even when you put it on, it was like you said, a conduit for this this side of him that was always lurking to really just explore itself. And the entity even says it, you need this power. And I mean, I just think about the world that that was created with Berserk. Like God is the aspect of God. We're talking about the God hands, but they're all demon. We don't, even with the church and how the church was infiltrated by apostle, and it's the prayers. If you noticed, outside of the arc where Guts was going, and I forgot what city that was to go to the church. Outside of that, no one was praying. No one was saying God will save us or anything like that. A lot of people didn't even know that demons existed, like Guts when he met Zod for the first time and was like, what the hell is this? But God wasn't this whole thing about angels and savior didn't come in really until Griffith came back and donned on the white armor and all that stuff. But before that, people were not praying. And to me, it was crazy because there is no I kind of think of like almost like The Witcher, but not really The Witcher, because again, there's no superpowers, there's no anything but willpower. And I'm just thinking over and over to myself, is like, how are they going to fight? Just until magic was introduced, and I was like, okay, there we go, we got some magic in here. But before that, I was just like, how are they really going to fight this battle on a day-to-day basis? Because these apostles, these monsters, these warrior demons, they're just stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like every level they just get harder and harder and harder. And it's just like, you just
Guts has his work cut out for him. His whole squad. Like,
man,
the cool thing too is that as the story goes on, is that Guts starts to take on more and more people. Like, I think it's very, gets that Dragon Ball vibe. It's like, you got Goku, and then he starts picking up friends,
Bulma, and
enemies left and right, and now he's got like a little team that kind of, they all travel together. And I'm saying, you got a magician, you got a magic person, you got a former soldier, and but they literally have their work cut out for them, because the odds that are against them are so heavy. And I think that's why, like, when Kentaro Mura and his team, Studio Gaga, were finishing like these newer arcs of Berserk, it's like they're literally creating like more and more story for years and years to come. Like, I think they were going to make the manga forever. You know what I'm saying?
Like a One Piece situation. Like that, but just on a better level. Like, sorry for cutting you off. That that manga. I don't. A lot of people are like, "Who's going to finish it?" I'm like, no, this is not a 1 year, 2 year thing. This is we may be 20 years out, if not more, before you even get to a climactic before the final battle. I mean, like, it's crazy how that manga, to your point, brings that on, man. Go right ahead. But that is an amazing point. Definitely amazing point.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, I think there is, if I try to think about it from an artistic standpoint, I think they were probably considering ending at one point, because after Griffith ascends to this, supreme demon, he's tethered to the demon realm, which is outside of the regular worldly realm. So he can kind of only show up as like a cameo, but then he gets pulled back. And I think he knows that for him to be the supreme at anything, he has to be able to rule both worlds. So eventually he figures out a way, by absorbing the essence of him and Casca's, bastard son or whatever, bastard mutated child.
But I don't even think that's his child though. But I think because of that, the rape scene, and I wish Denise was here to really, as I say that, we talk about this, and again, this has happened in the manga. You didn't see it in the anime, of course, but that child, I think, was Guts and Casca's child, and then what happened to Casca?
I think it's Casca and Griffith's child. That's my personal view on that. But
it's just a mix. I mean, like, you can't tell, but they meet in the manga, like the last chapter of the manga. That child, which they call like the king of something, like, because they think he's like the elf king or some of that nature. And they meet at the last chapter out of the manga that just came out, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm talking. I need conversation. I need the child to be like, this is what's really going on, because you don't know if the child is a demon or not. It looks like one when it was from the baby aspect, but even that was deep too. Like, man, I really want to. It's so much we can talk about, but that aspect of Griffith taking that child in and then spitting out whatever remains, and I'm thinking that's more of the humanity side of the child that Griffith didn't want the human side. He wanted the complete absolute power, because even when he saw Zod, he wasn't afraid of Zod. He was amazed at Zod. Like, he was amazed at this being that just was strong and powerful and had literally no fear, and just felt like he just could take over whatever, even though it's just crazy that what goes through Griffith's head as a character. And you just don't know. You think he, I mean, to your point, he's very more, I don't know if he's more intelligent than the rest of the God Hands, because you don't really get a lot of the aspect of the God Hands, and except for the one with the brain outside of his head, who used to be imprisoned by the king supposedly, but even in the manga that wasn't really the case. He was really trying to create just turmoil in the kingdom, and that was something crazy. And then you got the woman who's always seen as very lustful, the woman demon, but you don't really know her backstory. And the other two guys, who I can't even remember what they look like. One has like goggles on, I know that. And then
one's like a twin or something. But I mean, I said it's interesting because, like I said, again, Griffith is able to shift between two realms now.
Yes.
So there was this whole larger part of the story of like, okay, now this dude can go anywhere, and the squad that he's starting to build is crazy because it's full of these humongous, like, humanoid demon, like, hybrid creatures where, like, they're 10 feet tall and they're super powerful, and Guts is the only person that can beat them. But again, it's such hard work for him to do so, because
just for one though
because he's one guy, man. Just one demon's hard as hell versus the whole group. So it just continues to be this wild story that they're just like, we could end it, but we're going to go in this other direction. And then they start introducing the whole, like, magic element. You know what I'm saying? The whole magic element is something that they got to towards the very end. And it's like, now there's this whole set of storylines and story arcs centered around magicians and witches and sorcerers and, like, goblins and, like, weird stories about people going to the forest and never coming back. Like, all of that lure that you would read about in, like, something like Lord of the Rings, they start exploring that in towards the end of the book. So Guts's story is almost I don't want to say it's minimized, but it's like people know what his journey is. And this is just like more filler story to give you more world building than anything, I would probably say.
But he didn't. I mean, I like it because, honestly, if you just pick up the first chapter, a couple chapters in manga, you watch the I'm not gonna say the anime. If you watch the 2015 version, then you're gonna get the aspect that Guts is after somebody, and that person is Griffith. He says it multiple times. You see it throughout the manga. But that was back to my point as far as, like, why I like the magic, it being involved more, because reality is that Guts himself can't even kill one, if not two demons on his own, even with the berserker armor, because of the strain it puts on his body, because of how it eats up his essence, literally. He can't do it alone. And I think that's what I love about what they did. They literally set him down on the sidelines and they focused on the magic. And I love how they introduced the magic. The magic wasn't if you believe you can do it. It was like, no, you have to have some innate connection with the magic. You have to have something in your body, your feelings, anything, all that has to be, the magic has to accept you. And I think that's one thing that I enjoy about it. I hope they keep it that way, versus like if you're watching a Harry Potter or something like that, it's like, oh, you have magic. You're born with magic. No, this is like, magic has to accept you, and you have to respect it, the good and the bad. And I think with the finishing of the manga with that arc on magic, I love how the sorcerer, whose name starts with an S, how she understands there's dark spirits, but they may not necessarily be bad. They just they're selfish, or they may play tricks or something of that nature. But everyone's always going after the wind spirit or the water spirit. But she's able to connect with these darker spirits after her transversing through Casca's mind. And I love that aspect, because there is just because something is dark doesn't mean it's bad. Back to your point with Guts being in all black and Griffith being in all white. It's like you have to. It's the yin and yang. I mean, the good old saying of the yin and yang. You have it. We all have different sides to us, but it makes us whole. And I love that they're going to reach a little bit more. Or at least it seems like they're going to be reaching more into that aspect. So, man, it's just fun, and it's so many things that we could. I mean, we're going to continue, of course, but I mean, there's so many nuances to that, and I really want to get to Skull Knight because Skull Knight to me, I'm going to say it. Skull Knight plays himself all the time, and he plays himself because he tells Guts, "I see a lot of myself in you," and I'm like, that's not a good thing. Like that's not a good thing. You literally have you're so straightforward on what it is that you want to do that the God hand plays you over and over and over again. And Griffith actually takes the actions that they know you're going to take, and he uses it against him to create this whole godly looking tree. But it's godly and it's white, but it's a very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing. And I'm just like, you still didn't get it. Like that's the second time you use the bayonet sword to try to traverse time and space, which the other God hand is able to do, and you just didn't get it. And I just don't understand that aspect of his character. All the years he's been chasing the God hand, and even the sorceress who was his friend and got kicked out of the forest and can no longer come back because of whatever it is that she did. And I think that she literally went into the eclipse and did her best to help him. And she might, I don't know if she was branded or not because I don't remember them showing it. It's just, I don't understand the amount of experience that he has with the God hands and the demons and everything. He still just is like, nope, I'm gonna just do it this way. And it continually slaps him in the face. And I just don't understand what he really wants to go after. Is he going to let everything burn around him just to get to this one God hand that obviously he can't touch? That's why he did the bayonet sword, so he can traverse time and space. I just don't understand. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, he's a complex character, man. I mean, again, like, for anybody who's watching doesn't know about the Skull Knight. I mean, it's like the Skull Knight used to be a king in Midland, this epic king who had, millions of people in his kingdom. And he basically sacrificed all those people in order to ascend to this demon level. But there's this unhidden story that they don't talk about why he hates the God hand. He basically hates the God hand, and his whole purpose of existing is to defy them but they're the ones that gave him his power. So it's like, how do you defy?
Is that what happened? Because I always got confused. I thought the God hand, one of the God hands with the brain sticking out of his head, which his name I can't remember. I thought he's the one that used the King of the Egg, and then Skull Knight just put on the armor. That
was the Skull Knight. Yeah. So he used to be a king, and he sacrificed his own his own country in order to get to that higher power level.
Wow, I forgot. I completely missed that. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so he's not a good guy at all, but like, again, like comparatively speaking to all the other people that are in the story, the God hand were really, really evil. He's kind of like the lesser of all those jokers, but he lives solely to defy them, and that's like what he finds his purpose to be, is to be able to defy them. But at the same time, like, they gave him his power, so it's like, how do you, like, if you taught somebody like everything they know, how they gonna beat you? You know what I'm saying? If you still know more than they do, like, it's just fact. What? But he also shows up, you know what I'm saying, every time to talk to Guts and hit him with the riddles and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Guts
like an old martial arts master trying to tell you, like, if the wax on, wax off type of situation.
Yeah, but he's not helping though. Nah. And that's the thing too. It's like, I think that towards the end they were really kind of dragging this whole thing out, in order to keep the manga going. I mean, they could have ended it a while ago, and I was reading this excerpt from, so Kentaro Miura, the creator of Berserk, formed Studio Gaga back in like the late 90s. So he already knew, hey, I can't continue to draw this manga by myself. It's just too much work. The scope, the things I want to achieve, I have to have people working under me and other people assisting me with drawing specific aspects. And that's a very, very common practice in all of manga. I mean, if you think about My Hero Academia or One Punch Man, they all have a team that they are working on, like basically like you'd have somebody like Akira Toriyama or a Kentaro Miura create the designs and the layouts of what the characters look like. And then they would do a lot of the initial drawing or the storyboarding. And then they would have their team go and do finishing artwork here and there. So I was reading this article about how one of the people who works at Studio Gaga, one of his assistants, was like, yeah, we could have ended this years ago. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that people want it. So we continue to bring out the story. And I think it's now at a place where people are not really sure whether they'll continue it or not. And personally, I would love to see Guts have some type of resolution. I'd love for him to, he suffered the entire series. Like, could we give him some type of like happiness towards the end, a happy ending, at least for him and Casca? Give them a happy ending. Let that be what it is. I think Griffith deserves to be completely annihilated. Like, we gotta sell games. This dude, Majin Buddhist, like, blow him in the smithereens. He never ever comes back again. Like, ever.
Spirit bomb that guy.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So, I'd love to see it end in a tasteful way, but ultimately, I think they're going to figure out a way to finish it or to continue it with just the people who are working within the studio, because there's a want and a need for it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely wanted. I'm total opposite on Guts having a happy ending. I want it to be visceral. I want it to be horrible. And I want the only person to really, and honestly, the only way for Casca to survive is for that God hand stamp to be removed, that mark of sacrifice, to be removed. And I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I mean, the magic, even all the magic that was introduced, they all say, hey, that everybody, and that's one thing I do like about making that stamp. If you're stamped for sacrifice, that's it. Like, no one is like, oh, we can remove this. Yeah, they can put a seal on it to help as much as possible, but no, that's it. Like, you don't, and a lot of people don't even get that choice especially in the show. I mean, as we saw in the manga and anime, you don't get that choice of if you can get stamped or not. People sacrifice you. Like, that blows my mind even more. But I definitely want it to be where Guts has to. I don't think Griffith, like, something's going to have to happen in whatever they have working out. But for the God Hand to really be destroyed, like, it's going to have to be like a mixture of, like you said, the band of Guts, and then also the Skull Knight in some shape or form, because he's just a being of he's like a spirit. Like, I think his body's been gone and all that stuff of that nature. But I don't see it. And if it ends well, it's kind of like Castlevania's ending, and I'm like, I mean, that's great. We do want to see things. We do want to see people prosper. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be pessimistic to the point of like, it's just death. But all of that pain, all of this suffering, you literally can't touch the God Hand. Like, you can't touch anybody in the God Hand. But you're going to finish off the manga with them walking away and walking away and being happy. I think really is going to end with like Ricket, if that's his name correctly, the one that didn't get branded because they left him. They told him to stay back, and he didn't get caught up in the eclipse. I just wanted to end with like Ricket just sitting there, just trying to figure out his life. Because I mean, with the people that he's banded with, because I love how Ricket, like, excuse me if I get his name wrong, I loved how he slapped the hell out of Griffith. Like, he was like, no, man, like, nah, bro. Like, when he found out all the things that Griffith did, and Griffith like tried to welcome him with open arms. And that's another thing about Griffith. And I know I keep going back to Griffith, but that is another thing about Griffith. He really enjoyed those people, but he was so caught up on his vision that he was like, I'll sacrifice them all. But when he saw that Ricket was survived and didn't have the mark, he was just like, oh, a familiar face. He welcomed him, not in the sense of like, oh, just welcome, go ahead about your business. He wanted to hug him and everything like that. And Ricket slapped the hell out of that guy. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's what I'm talking about, man. Don't fall for that. And he saw it in the castle too, like all the spirits and stuff. He's like, nah. This is wild. This is not a holy place. This man is taking out spirits and sending them places. I was like, yeah, you better understand, man. You are in the demon's nest for real. So, man. Yeah. We can go on and on.
It's interesting how Kentaro Miura and the storytellers behind Berserk are painting, religion and what that looks like as
Yes.
this, like, okay, the holiest of people in this book are the most evil, which is kind of an interesting thing. And, someone who's completely the opposite from that, like Guts and his team are considered to be the darker ones of the story, which is just kind of an interesting thing. Makes the whole yin and yang concept even more rich within this particular environment. But yeah, man, I'm very interested to see whether they can want to continue it or not. I mean, I guess it's kind of one of those things that, like, even though this person died in, in their 50s, which is relatively young.
Yeah.
He probably thought, I've got a good 30 more years of development that I could continue to do. And I'm sure he plotted and planned with his team for the next 30 years of this run, since it's already been in existence for over 30 years. And I would love to see them continue it, because they know what he wanted. Like, he was their students, X, Y, and Z. It's like watching the old karate school. You know what I'm saying? It's like the grandmaster passes away, and now we have to keep the essence of this school going. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what he would have wanted. So I'm hoping for that. I'm really hoping for that, and I'm hoping if they do it, that it's done right. You know what I'm saying? And that's all we could hope for. You know what I mean?
I agree with you 100%. I'm excited to see what they do. I want them to continue the artwork. I want them to take care of themselves. I know that the anime and manga just being, like, to me, like the biggest export out of Japan. I know it's hard work, especially since everyone wants to make toys and all these things out of it. But it's the detail, it's the time you take. Again, quality over quantity always. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be, and you'll understand that trying to keep up with the trends is gonna put you. It could literally put you in the grave, literally. So, our rest in power to Moru, if I got his name correctly.
Mura,
rest in power to him. Thank you for giving us this creative work where we can even discuss this. TJ, man, if everybody does not know, again, Ray Comics, like, you got to go get it. All right, Joystick Angels. I did the last day, June 12th, when the Kickstarter, right before it ended on that Friday night. Definitely got mine going. Put up the IG post and everything to make sure that we got support. And everybody on BlackNerdFridays, Black Bearded Nerd and Kinky Suds, Denise, we all donated. So I'm looking forward to that and popping that open. So, man, it's a pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking some time and talking about Berserk. And trust me, we will probably do this again, because I know Denise was very excited. She also wants to do Claymore. We talked about doing Claymore as well. So whenever we'll see your time, see if you're free, and we'll make sure to send you an invite for that when we start to talk.
I got to get caught up on Claymore, because I haven't dived in enough to talk about it. But once I'm in there, I will, like, for real. But so we've got some questions in here.
Okay, go ahead. What are we looking at?
Bricktarian Beer Hut.
Oh yeah, Bricktarian. What's going on?
Oh, you did the Kickstarter too.
He said he did the Kickstarter too.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Appreciate Brick is the truth right there. Brick is the truth. Oh. Him and the fam is definitely the truth, and I appreciate them greatly. So
thank you.
This has been another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. Shout out to both my co-hosts who couldn't join. Blackbearded Nerd Ren, man, happy birthday again. It was his birthday earlier in the week, so his family took him out. And then Kinky Suds get better. Can't wait to get next Friday so we can talk. And last but not least, Juneteenth. I'm glad it's a federal holiday. Glad that the conversation has to be had. Black folks know as much as we do know about Juneteenth, but I'm glad that this question is going to be asked even by my daughter when that time comes. What is Juneteenth, Daddy? What does that mean? So I have to study up more, because public school has not taught us about enslavement at all. It just gives us a couple of pages because they don't want to rattle the cages, but that's not going to cut it anymore. So we'll catch you all on the next episode. And just go watch Berserk. Go do it. Go get read the manga, watch the animes, even the 2015 one if you want to. But watch them both. Get Get your,
Yeah,
get your feel on it.
the early anime and from the 90s is dope. The music is fantastic.
Man,
It's pretty cool. As a separate thing, it's very, very cool. It's dope. You'll love it. But if you really want that detailed experience, you want to dive into the world. The Berserk manga has been going on for over 30 years. So there's tons of content. You pick up one manga, it might take you a month or two, depending on how fast you read. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got plenty of stuff to dive into. So, I mean, definitely enjoy. And I hope that the discussion we had tonight gives you a little bit of an idea of how crazy the story is and how much stuff there is. But if you really like that action, you know what I'm saying, you like the dark magic type stuff, you know what I'm saying, that the Gothic Knight type energy, you're going to like this a lot. And I think it'd just be fun. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole fun thing for sure.
TJ, I'm about to end this. Black Nerd Fridays will catch you every Friday, next Friday, Friday after that, and so forth. Go check out Ray Comics, Joystick Angels. It's going down, and Alchemist too. Come on, let's get it. Like go get it.
Comics.com, RAEcomics.com. We've got everything from the Joystick Angels Kickstarter on pre-order.
Yeah.
So if you want to get on that or get some other stuff, t-shirts, toys, whatever,
get it all.
I'll just be happy to see you guys. So thank you for showing up and listening to us talk about some cool stuff.
And we're out.